So how'd you feel like the operation went the other day?
I thought the operation was smooth. It's our job as coaches to make it smooth, and it's the player's job to coordinate it smoothly once the call gets into the huddle.
How different is what you're doing now compared to what you did when you had a title as offensive coordinator in Cleveland?
I don't think this situation is uniquely different than any other situation. It's always a staff-oriented approach to game planning, to what you want to call in certain situations and things like that. So, I'd say it's not unlike any other situation with any staff, even before.
Well, it sounds like you've reached out to the players to ask them what they like to do, what they think can help. Why was that important to do at this point in the season?
Well, I think we all, as coaches, we always try to do that. You need to get a sense and feel for what they're comfortable with. To me, why would you call something? And this is the way our staff believes. Why would you call something if a player's not comfortable running it? And it's your job to get them comfortable running it. If you think it's a good, scheme or good play or whatever the case may be, it's your job to get them comfortable doing it. But if you can't get them to that point, it's kind of diminishing returns.
How many of the player suggestions would you say you incorporated into your game plan?
I think this is a never-ending process. It's constant communication. That's what we try to stress, is this communication between coach and coach, coach and player, player to coach. It's always constant communication. So I wouldn't put a number on it. I'm so sorry. I'll buy you one for Christmas, all right?
Still working?
You didn't like it. You didn't like what I was saying, did you?
Still working? I'm sorry.
I don't know. It's still recording.
Oh, yeah, it's good. Thanks.
Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. All right. So I think it's always a continual process.
And speaking of comfort, so Daniel had never worn a wristband before. So what was the conversation like with him about doing that, and how comfortable do you think he was with it?
I think he saw the benefits of it. Everywhere I've always been, I think they do it around the league a lot. You see quarterbacks with wristbands. It helps the communication process. But it's just like any other thing. You've got to practice that as well.
Who do you expect to have a quarterback this week?
I expect Daniel to come out today and practice, and I fully expect to, it'd be just like regular old times.
If you have, how different is a game plan with Daniel? Obviously, you do a lot of read options than with Mike Lennon.
Well, I think as a coach and as a staff, we always try to put our players in the best situation to be successful. They have different skill sets, but that's neither to say one's bad or one's good from the standpoint of what you're going to call it. It's just, our plan's going to be our plan, and we're fully expecting to have everybody.
Freddie, so does your play calling change with Daniel if is playing with some pain in his neck there?
I don't see anything changing. We're going to prepare like we prepare every week, and whoever's there on Sunday, that's who we're playing with. But we're going to get everybody on our. We take 50. We've got 53 guys on the roster. I think we're up to 53 now. We may have 52. I don't know the exact. Don't quote me on that, but whoever's at the game is going to be ready to play, and that goes from player number 1 to player number 46 or 47, however many we have active.
So Freddie, with the wristband, does that basically help Daniel get the play quicker? Like you give him a number or something, then he looks at it on the wristband?
Well, yeah, it all has to do with smoothing out the communication process.
So the goal is to give him more time to essentially look at the defense.
I'm not telling you what wristband number 8 is.
I know. I wouldn't understand it anyway. But
well, you would if you had a wristband.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But the goal is to kind of give him more time to look at the defense. Is that fair to say, and see what they're doing rather than being as rushed?
The goal of a play caller and as a staff and all that is to get the play to the quarterback as quick as possible. Not necessarily for him to dissect the play in his head, but for him you want to break the huddle as fast as possible to get to the line of scrimmage and have more time to see and react.
Are you giving him more freedom, any more freedom than he had previously at the line to change a play?
I think it's always been our thought as a staff for a long time that, the quarterback has to drive this thing. All right, the quarterback has to drive decisions, but in saying that, everybody should know if they're prepared, which we try to get our guys prepared every week. They should know what's coming. They should know the answers to the test before the test gets there.
Freddie, when you have a change in play callers mid-season, is there a limit to what you can do, or can this offense over time start to look a lot different than it did in the past?
I'm not really sure how to answer that. You know, I don't want to get, you know, I'm not going to get myself in trouble by saying something about that. The game plan is going to be the game plan. So,
I mean, I assume you had ideas and things you want to do differently. I assume you're also working under the same playbook. I mean, can there be?
The terminology stayed the same. Everything, our approach from the standpoint of how we call things stay the same. It's all about familiarity with the players and what they're used to at this point. And so the ultimate goal is to play fast when the ball is snapped. And as much of that consternation that you can eliminate early before the ball is snapped, of course that benefits you to enable you to put your mind and focus on the task at hand, which is that individual play, whatever that play may be.
When former players who are now media guys look at the Giants offense, well, I'm just saying, not just us, guys who played the game, say that whoever the Giants offensive coordinator is hamstrung because the offensive line is struggling so much. I'm curious, are you calling plays because the offensive line is struggling with that in mind, or do you not agree with that assessment?
I think we try to put our players, each individual player, whether they're up front, tight ends, wide receivers, running backs, or quarterback, we try to put them in the best possible position to be successful. Everybody has a role in this, so you know, we try to put everybody in position to be successful.
Freddie, last week Joe said the game plan would be a collaborative effort. Is that always the case, or is it you're having more of a say in what's in?
Every staff that I've always been on has always been a collaborative effort. And if it's not, something's wrong in that area. You know, we need input from Jerry. We need input from Tyke. We need input from Rob. We need input from Burton. We need input from Russ Callaway, Nick Williams, Jody Wright. We need input from everybody. And so I think, you know, we do a good job of communicating, working through things. What do we want to do here? Who are we trying to attack? What personnel we want to use? You know, everybody has different suggestions, and that's how we roll. But that's not unique to any other situation I think you find across the league, you know. Of course, I think you have some staffs that are better at it than others, you know, but I don't think that's unique. Facetious, by the way, one of two words in the English language that have all the vowels in it, and they're in order, right? So can you spell facetious?
I can.
All right, spell it.
F-A-C-E-T-I-O-U-S.
Yes, A-E-I-O-U, right? In order. What's the other word?
I don't know. I was just asking you that.
Nobody knows? Anybody know around here? Abstemious. All right? That's y'all's homework assignment. All right? Tell me what abstemious means.
Is there something special about Joe that
Well, you know,
brought
we had a
here?
relationship with Joe when he was at Alabama, so, you know, I knew him from way back when, and so it was just one of those things that made it easier for the decision knowing the guy, you know. So I was glad he gave me an opportunity to do it, so why not, you know.
Was there something special about the relationship while you guys were at Alabama?
Well, not just a working relationship, you know. I mean, I knew his family, he knew my family. You know, we had good working relationships, you know, with all the guys at Alabama, you know. And Joe was one of the guys. Joe contributed to some of the success that we had. So, you know, I just felt part of him, and he felt part of me, you know. So it was just a natural thing that happened.
Part of maybe helping him get his head coaching career off the
Well,
ground too.
I mean, you know, and also helping me get in the NFL. So it was, you know, it's a two-way street actually, you know.
I know it hasn't always been easy for you between last year, you know, not being around your family and having COVID this year. Is this something you're happy that you've done?
Oh yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's part of the profession we in. It would always be something, you know. So I just see it as another challenge, you know. The challenge last year with COVID was, you know, I think everybody went through that. It wasn't just something that I experienced, you know. And this year really hadn't been bad at all, you know, except for that one little week I was out.
And everybody's good?
Everybody's good. Everybody's great, you know. The family's good. They came up this weekend, you know. My wife is here. So, you know, the girls are coming up. And my son has been to the game, so it's kind of normal, you know. I mean, you know, our hometown is New Orleans, so my family's always come to the games wherever I've been at. So it's a normal year in that regard, you know.
And the last question along that line is, how have you seen Joe develop and change in the couple of years that you've been here?
I mean, you know, this is his first experience as a head coach, and I think, he's just growing into the position. You know? I think we have a different job responsibility. You naturally grow into it. So I've seen him make really good strides, you know. I mean, he's always capable, even I consider him as a young guy when I was at Alabama, you know. He always had the ability to lead guys, you know. So he did a great job for us at Alabama. So I think, same thing with me, you know. It was first experience in the NFL. So I like to think I've grown so much, you know. You learn it's like, changing jobs, you know. It's a different responsibility, so you got to adjust to those responsibilities. So.
And I'm just looking at this team, how close do you think Saquon is to being Saquon?
Well, I mean, the thing about him, he's had his challenges with the injuries, you know. But I've never been around a guy who's more conscientious about, rehabbing and overcoming those things, you know. That's part of the business when you're a football player, you know. You're going to have challenges with injuries, so. But, he's pointing in the right direction. I mean, it's not his fault he's getting injured, you know, so. But his mindset has been fantastic, the way he's worked through these things, you know. So, I think, and I don't know what that is, be Saquon, I don't know. I think he's still the same guy. He just had these, these little bumps in the road with the injuries. You just got to overcome them and get back on track.
Burton, people see glad to see you're feeling better.
Thank you.
People see the run game, though, go for whatever it went against the Raiders, 100+ against the Raiders. And then they see Saquon come back, who's, I think we all agree, supposed to be the better player, and then it's not as effective. Is that game plan specific, or is something not working with this specific offensive line and this specific runner?
Well, I think it's just a challenge of different teams. The Raiders were different from the Bucks, and last week was a different challenge, So I think that's nothing to really do with him particularly, not being this or the offensive line not being that.
Some people say, and I'm no expert, but some people who play the game say Saquon's strengths as a runner aren't this offensive line's strengths as blocker.
I never bought that, I never bought that with the guys. I think guys adjust to whoever they're playing with in that regard to the offensive line, And I never did even look at it in terms of like, well, this guy plays better with this guy, this group of guys, this players don't. But I just think it's a matter of, of the game, what happens in the game, what type of game you're playing in, what's the rhythm of the game. So I don't think it has anything to do with his ability one way or the other.
Just what have your impressions been of him this year? I know this is your first year kind of working specifically with tight ends, right? So,
correct.
So
yeah, but I've watched him
year.
obviously both years, and
how's he been?
I think he's as far as his approach, his work ethic, his day-to-day approach has been the same, since the day I got here. And he's really, to me, a model NFL player when it comes to that. And I think, that's been said many times before. I've been real pleased with how he's played this year. He's been put in a situation probably that's, we all want more touches. We all want more opportunities down the field. But at the, putting the team first is like our number one value in our program, and he's done that. And so when we've asked him to chip and block and do other things that we need out of the tight ends to help the team, he's done it. He's done it with a great attitude and a great approach. And so hopefully he'll continue to make a positive impact in our games. I think he's done that in the last few games, and we'll see how it goes the rest of the year.
In terms of him, and you mentioned that's stuff that, obviously a lot of tight ends in today's NFL want to get targeted, right?
Sure.
But with him, he had a receiver background, and people kind of wondered, could he block at this level? And you have to be able to do that, obviously, to stick here. So how has he been at those things that maybe, like the blocking stuff, that weren't quite as probably as natural for him coming out?
Well, it's a great question. All tight ends, the thing about tight ends, they all come in different shapes and sizes and strengths and things they don't do as well. And certainly his bulk, he's 230 plus pounds. You're not going to be able to block certain things the way somebody who might be 265 will block. And so as far as what we've asked him to do on the line of scrimmage, we think he's done a very good job. And it's our job to not put him in a position where we're asking him to do something that physically he's not really built for. And, and I think every team does that to their tight ends to a certain extent. The tight end position, it's one of those, a lot of people call it the Swiss Army knife, where you can kind of do a lot of different things, but what do you do really well? And I think focusing on what you do really well and not putting them in a position to not do things that you don't do as well, that's the job as coaches.
So, obviously he's a guy who's dealt with injuries throughout his career, and I was talking to him about it the other day, and he talked about, trying to keep a level head through it all. And how do you see his level-headedness, like in particular, on a daily basis?
I actually think the toughest thing he went through so far, he had a phenomenal training camp. He really did. He didn't miss one practice, made a lot of plays down the field, and was really developing a good chemistry with Daniel. And then he hurt himself and missed the first few games. And I think he was so excited about how he had been performing in training camp, and just got really excited about what this season was going to hold for him. And then all of a sudden another setback. And then it took him a game or two to kind of get back. And so, but through it all, despite everything that's going on, I've been real impressed with what he is as a man and his approach. He's just been great, and he's been a real joy to coach.
Like, how do you see his demeanor on a daily basis? Because some guys, it's an emotional game, and so. So a lot of these are kids, and they can get high and low. So, how do you see his demeanor?
I actually think every player's different, and Evan, he can get amped up, all right. And some guys need to get amped up to compete well. In some respects, Evan has to slow it down a little bit competitively, because when he gets amped up, he starts maybe not focusing on the little things that make him a good player. And so I think our approach, I say it's not been my approach, it's he and I talking on, finding what's that competitive demeanor where you play your best, your optimum performance. And you have to find that emotionally. Every player has to find that. And, you can be too high, and he's been too high, and he hadn't performed the way he wants to perform, and you can get too low. You're not ready. You're not mentally tight enough. And so just finding that balance, and I think he's done a great job with it. I have to remind him sometimes in the games. He makes a big play, he gets juiced up, and I'm like, all right, we're good, next play, right?
Yeah.
And so he's just been great at it.
He's faced a lot of criticism, and probably to an almost unfair, kind of visceral level from fans.
Yeah.
And I know guys talk about trying to ignore that, but it's on their phone. It's in there. When they open their phone.
Right.
How has he dealt with that from your perspective?
Yeah. It's such a different time. I've talked to our players about this. When I played, if you had a bad game, which we all do, you would come in the next day. The coach would sort of shape the message for you. And you would say, okay, we got to correct these things, but it was positive and we're moving forward. And you that was the last thing you heard about. Well, nowadays, it's unavoidable. When you have a bad game, you're going to hear about it for a long time. And, people say, don't look at the phone. It's not reality. You certainly have to be very judicious on what you read and what you put in. And if you don't balance it with something to be able to get a lot of those negative thoughts out of your brain, it can be a real tough thing for him. And I think Evan is no different than most players at this level. And certainly when you're one of the star players, you have to learn how to manage those emotions. And, saying just ignore it is ridiculous. We're human. All right. When any human reads something that's really negative about them, it's going to have an effect unless you don't learn how am I going to counter that? With what thoughts am I going to counter? And, I've been real impressed with Evan's spiritual growth. I think he's worked a lot on himself emotionally. And that's part of maturing as a man. It's part of maturing as a player. And so I couldn't be more pleased with where he is from that standpoint. And that's not to say there's going to be a bad play. There might be some boos, and so just knowing that, the important thing is learning how to judge yourself by looking in the mirror. And, we had that discussion this morning, in fact, about just focusing on the things that you can control. And if you play this sport and your objective is for other people to get your satisfaction from others or from a coach or from anybody else, you're going to have a hard time because they're never going to give you really what you need. And so learning to look in the mirror and evaluate what you're doing well, what didn't you do well. If you didn't do it well, own it, and then work on getting better. That's the only way you can make it.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't know if anyone.
No, you're good.
Like the one in particular when he came, the one that was like crazy to me was like fans were like cheering when he came off the field that one game. It's like, golly, I mean, cut the kid a break.
That was that's the profession we're in, you know. So you can't. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, they have every right to do that, right? We've all been booed. I promise you, I've been booed plenty of times too, you know. And that's, again, you have to say, you know. And sometimes I say, you know what? I mean, you kind of deserve it.
Yeah.
If you put the ball on the ground and you turn it over or something, they boo you. Like, what do you want them to do? Cheer?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so go play better. Yeah. But the important thing is not to let those kind of things start impacting on what you think of yourself as a player. A bad play doesn't make you a bad player.
More serious note, I think the big topic a lot of discussion about is right tackle. So can you explain sort of the decision why Nate is the guy to be the every down right tackle?
Plain and simple, you watch every play. When Andrew was out, body of work, Nate's the better player right now. You know, Matt's had opportunities, and we're playing the best players that thinks that we have a chance to give us a position to win. You know, and Nate, in my opinion, in our opinion, he's playing better. Is he perfect? No, nobody's perfect. But he gives us the best chance to win.
So what about the school thought that I mean, you're not saying they're close, but say they are close. You have a young guy who, you know, maybe a bigger problem.
Yeah.
No?
Well, you know, I get it. I know where you're going with that question, but they're valuable plays. Nate gives us the best chance, period.
What does Matt need to show you that maybe he hasn't to this point?
More physical.
Simple as that.
Is there something about his preparation?
No, preparation. No, I mean he goes in the right mindset. He prepares the right way. He goes in the meeting room the right way. He's always in the building, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, it's a violent game. You got to go out there and slide and put your hands in the chest and play. It's not going to be perfect all the time, you know. Playing O-line you're never going to be perfect, but you can cover the ground a lot by being physical, more effort, toughness, strain, all those intangibles that make the great ones great, you know. So.
How did you feel like he played when he was over there at left tackle, which he hadn't really played before in the NFL?
He did a good job. He did. It's hard to go from right where he was going to left, but then, you know, Andrew got hurt, and we thought experience moved Nate to left, and, you know, being Dallas being the first game, and was uncomfortable there, you know, and we had Andrew early on there. We were playing pretty good, you know. I wouldn't say great, I wouldn't say terrible, you know, somewhere right in the middle, you know. And Nate was mixing and fighting and scratching in there, and but when we moved him to the left, it kind of, you know, his sets were all off, and so Matt was a better option at left and keep Nate at right. And now, you know, now that we got Drew back healthy, you know, now Matt could be the swing guy. You know, it's their thought process.
How do you, maybe it's not you, maybe it's him. How does a guy go about becoming more physical?
Play hard.
Like, how do you get it out of him, though, right?
I mean, coaches, you do all different types. Every player responds to something different. You can sit down and have realistic conversations with guys, you know, which that's been done, you know. Motivate every different way. Some people yell, holler, scream. Everybody responds different. Everybody gets motivated by things different. But he knows where he's at in his career, knows where he's at as a player.
Did Daniel fight the wristband, or did he embrace the wristband?
Oh, I think he embraced it, yeah. You know, he was pretty good with it. Worked on it during the week, which I think was important, and he did a good job with it during the game.
You used that in New England with Tom?
We always had one. We only used it if we needed it, but we almost had one as a backup. Not necessarily, you know, every play was called that way.
So you mean he wore it as a backup, or he just had it? You
All
had
the
it just
quarterbacks had one.
So he did
Communication went out.
He didn't always use
and
it.
you could just say number 85 or something. And you
Is
could
that
go to
because
that.
he's
and
so
then-
good?
No, I just
Or
think
that,
we just always had it as a precaution, and then every now and then we would use it in if stadium got loud or something, and it was easy to just go to the wristband. But it was we had it, but it was few and far between when we used it, I would say.
Jerry, what are you expecting at quarterback this week? You expect Daniel? You expect Glennon?
Yeah,
Do you
I
have
think
to work with both?
we'll wait and see on that. DJ's doing a good job of doing what he needs to do and getting out here and doing what he can, and so he did that yesterday, and hopefully we'll see if he can do some more today and then tomorrow and see how it goes. But I think we're preparing for everything, but certainly hoping that he could go and be the starter.
So do you have to split your time more 50-50 than, say, I don't know, 80-20, the extra? I'm not talking about meetings where everybody, the extra time, more than 80-20 maybe with Daniel?
In terms of the practice?
Yeah, in terms of just extra time you spend with your starting quarterback.
No, I think the one thing we do in the meetings, we all prepare together, and there's no separate meetings. I would say the separate one would come up with Jake, who we just signed, who's brand new, that you're trying to catch up a little bit, and I've been meeting with him a little bit extra. Nick Williams has been meeting with him a little bit extra just to catch him up, but he's the guy we'd probably try to catch up a little bit, but everyone else, everything's pretty much the same.
What was it like calling plays against Flo in practices in New England?
Oh, that was fun. I got to give Flo credit. I always used to bust his chops because when we would run some of the end of the practice periods and I would get to call the offense and he would call the defense, he'd blitz the crap out of us. And I was like, man, someday you better be calling that stuff when it's for real, And he does. So, it was fun. He's a great coach. All those guys are, Josh Boyer as well. Those guys have been together for a long time, and I'm sure you could tell they think the same. I've seen them in action, and they do a good job. So it was fun. Fun calling plays against them. It'll be fun going up against them on Sunday.
With Jake Fromm, how realistic is it to catch a guy up quickly enough to be in uniform on Sunday?
We did it before this year in a much probably smaller scale when we signed Brian Lewerke, and he arrived I think on Tuesday or Wednesday it was, and then he was playing on Sunday and played the whole second half, and so we've done that before, so I think it's realistic. Certainly the stakes aren't as high as a regular season game, and your call sheet is a little more limited with that. But it's realistic for sure. I think it depends on the quarterback and how smart he is, which I think Jake's a really smart guy. So he's working hard at it. He's drinking through a fire hose right now, basically, and continue to do that for the next couple of days, and we'll see how it goes.
Jeremy, how has your role changed in the last 2 weeks since Jason left?
Yeah, I don't know if it's changed a whole lot. With the quarterbacks, I would say none of that is altered. We still run our meetings the exact same way we do, and I still do that. And then in terms of everything else, I guess it's been a collaborative effort, as basically everyone's been saying. We've been working hard together on the game plan and coming up with our thoughts and just trying to work hard to get our players in the best position that we can. And so, ultimately someone's going to call it, but we kind of work together on it and, shore it up at the end of every day and at the end of the week.
When you guys talk about collaborative, it makes it sound like it wasn't as collaborative previously.
No, I certainly don't want to imply that at all. We all had a voice in everything that was going on. It's really. I guess it's similar in that regard, but we're all. I don't know that we're taking on new roles in any of that, but anytime you have a new person that's in charge of calling it, there's a little different, and so you're just trying to feel each other out, and we're all working hard at understanding a little bit what he likes and. Or how he likes to call it, and then we're doing a good job of giving our input too, and so I think he's doing a good job of listening to that too.
What are some of Freddie's best assets as a play caller? I mean, he used to be a head coach.
Yeah, hard for me to say because I've only really done it for this one game exactly. I think, like I said, I think we're still feeling that out, but he's certainly not afraid to take some opportunities. And I think he's got a little bit of a wing it mentality to him at times, which is a good thing, Sometimes, myself included, you get like, oh, I don't know if we could do this, and he's a little bit more like, oh yeah, we do that, So, everyone's different. No right or wrong.
Jerry, when a guy is hurt and, Daniel's got a neck injury, do you have to sit there and say, well, we can't run him as much, or if he's out there, you have to play him as normal?
Yeah, it's a real good balancing act there. It's hard to do because I think that's a good asset of his, and it's a good asset for our offense when he can run and do stuff. You are always cautious of getting him banged up or him getting himself banged up or taking a shot. I think you can take shots in the pocket sometimes just as well as you can out of the run. So we always try to preach playing smart and not taking the extra hit when you can. He's done a pretty good job of that. I know he tried the slide on the one that he got hurt on, apparently, and then he did a good job later in the game of sliding a little sooner. So we always just preach that of get what you can and get down.
Jerry, when you said a wing it mentality, what do you mean by that? I mean, so it's not like a careless throw it anywhere type of thing.
I certainly didn't mean to apply that. I think, when you're sitting there and you're always looking at protection first and, okay, this is a great idea. Can we protect this? Can we do this? And, sometimes you're a little bit like, I don't know if we could do that. And so maybe, his idea is a little bit more like, oh, yeah, we could do that. I don't mean to just wing it, no holds barred, not at all.
But I would imagine quarterbacks love the idea of maybe taking some chances.
They always do, and sometimes you got to rein them back in, though, because sometimes it's the call gets made and you want to go, but they're all bailing out of there, and it's like, hey, throw it underneath, and then we'll move on. We can call this play again, So.
Jerry, when you guys solicited feedback from Daniel and other players this past week, how assertive was Daniel about saying, here's what I like, here's what I don't?
Yeah,
how much is he taking control?
He did a good job of that. I think he really does that all the time. But he did a good job of that, I'd say, last week of saying, these plays I'm not really great on. The one thing about him is he's always fair to give something a chance and give it a look in practice and see, and then, he may not say, I don't know if I see that. Then he'll run and say, I'm good on that. You know what I mean? But there might be something else where he's just not as good on, not as comfortable. And so I think we do a good job of trying to get those plays out of the game plan then for him. Even if you say, oh man, I think this is really good at work, but if they're not comfortable with it, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I never get a feel for just how, I know you guys solicit the feedback, but we don't get a feel really for how responsive he is or how assertive he is to put his foot down.
Yeah, no, he's getting better at that for sure.
That's pretty standard for a quarterback to have that kind of input. I would guess that, it sounds like other players.
The veteran guys are a little more forceful in that, where it's like, hey, rank these 1 through 10, and they're like, well, this play's 18, and you're like, okay, we can't call that, but. He certainly has always been very forthcoming. Sometimes you just need to ask him and get it out of him a little bit,
So for you personally, how much changed for you, right? You get with the whole operation and Jason not being here, with no offensive coordinator by title. Were you asked to do more?
No. The change for me, it hasn't been any change. We've always had an input on the game plan, what goes in, what goes out. Jason and Freddie gives me the ability to move guys around to where I see fit based on the play that's going to be called, and that hasn't changed. We all input with the plays, we all input with everything, so there's no real change for me.
What about during the game? How much do coaches give input on plays during the game? Is that something you do, or you kind of stay off with that?
Yeah,
kind of
in between series, we'll come up with some plays that we think is going to be good for the next upcoming series, and Freddie asks, Tyke, what you think about this? We think about that, and I'll give him my opinion. I'll say, oh no, what about, don't run this play, run that play. I think that's better. This personnel, he'll write it down. So it's nothing, and Jason did the same thing. So it's no real change from that standpoint.
Joe talked about the emphasis, one of the emphasis being, hey, we're going to be more player-based, right? But how, hey, we need to get the ball to Saquon, to Kenny, and we're going to get them the ball in open space and let them make plays.
Sure.
What's your feeling on that as a wide receiver coach? I'm sure you're probably not against that.
Not against it at all. Players, some of my best players need to make more plays and put them in position to make more plays. But at the same time, I'm going to have confidence whoever's on the field is going to make plays and the ball's coming that way. If you look at it throughout the whole year, I haven't had the receivers healthy at one game all year. So it's been times when Dante Pettis made plays. It's been time when John Ross made plays. It's been time when KT made plays. Okay, so whoever's out there, I'm going to have full confidence they're going to do what they're coached to do, go out there and make plays.
But now you're designing it specifically to get the ball to X guy, it seems like. Is that accurate?
I think that's always been the case.
Not at all costs, but you get the idea.
Yeah, I think that's always been the case for the most part. I think it's probably narrowed down a little bit. You know, it's probably less volume and more emphasis on, okay, these plays for these guys, as opposed to having a bigger volume and just, okay, a couple of plays here, a couple of plays there. I think the whole volume is narrowed down a little bit, so it puts more of an emphasis on what you're talking about, getting this guy the ball or that guy the ball. So that's probably the biggest difference.
How is Kenny taken to it? We obviously saw a difference for him, right? I mean, the emphasis to get him the ball, especially in the red zone there. He had one red zone target this year coming into this previous game, and he had two right away. Right. When he got to the red zone.
Yeah, I think that's the thing we need to take advantage of. He has size. He has a really good catching radius, and I think going forward you'll probably see a little bit more of that. But again, we're going to design the plays to get our best players the ball, and whether it's KG or Evan or Saquon or when everybody gets back, Shep and KT, when they all get on the field.
Just put an if there at this point.
Yeah, we'll figure it out and get those guys, our best playmakers, a chance to make plays.
All of a sudden, it seems like instead of maybe getting his hand on a ball, now he's intercepting that, maybe that same exact play.
You think that as he plays, the game is starting to slow down a little bit for him. You think that like the whole group is settling in and communicating better, getting used to playing with each other and understanding things and seeing how teams are attacking us. And you just think that the longer he plays, like the more that'll hopefully continue to happen.
Sometimes we talk about safeties and you say, "Oh, he could do a lot of things. He could play up the box. He could do this, do this." You're sort of keeping him in center field. Why is that, and do you like that for him?
We actually have moved him around some. If you think about the pick against Vegas, he actually came out of the center, deep part of the field, and we rotated him down and matched him on the receiver in that case, and he made the big play for us at a great time. Kind of a good call at a good time and putting a good player in a position to make a play. And he made the play for us, and we'll continue to look to do that. But he's so good in the deep part of the field, feeling things, seeing things, and then he's such a good tackler that you feel secure that if something breaks, he's going to get it on the ground. He's got the athleticism, the speed, and the awareness that he can go get it tackled, and you feel good about that.
I don't know if this is a problem, but I mean, getting Logan back, Julian's playing so well. I mean, how do you squeeze Logan in, and where do you move Julian? Or
that's a problem until you get last week and everybody's hurt, and you start moving everybody around. So I'm happy to have Logan back with Julian. I wish Pep was up too. You can't have enough good players because guys are going to get hurt. Guys are going to go down, and you're going to be playing and trying to piece it together like we did in the second half last week. And the more pieces we have to do that, the better.
One of those pieces is J.R. Reed, who's a guy we don't know much about. What do you like about him?
He comes from obviously a great football pedigree, with his father being such a good player. He has experience, he's smart, he knows some of the coaches from his past, and he's just one of those guys that just comes in and works and has fit in, in our room pretty quickly.
Jordan, what do you think makes Pat Graham a good defensive coordinator?
He worked so hard at it, and then you add on top of that his great work ethic. I get in really early and I leave really late, and he's usually here both times. So he works really hard at it, and then he's very, very obviously intelligent. Thinks football at a high level, not afraid to do the unconventional thing. And to be his own man, and I think that's what allows him to really have a lot of success.
One of his philosophies, he says, is take away the other team's game breakers and let the other guys beat you. What does that do to your DBs? Because then you're almost taking your
best defensive deep back, putting him on their best player, and then a lot's asked of the other
That changes every week, and that's where Pat's been good. Like, you do that different every week. Like, one week you may put your best guy on their best guy and say that's how we're going to play. You may put your best guy on the other guy and then help to that guy. You have all those options and everything in between. And I think week to week, after we sit and look at it and talk about it, Pat usually comes up with a plan that has been good.
A-Rob moved to the outside last week when Adoree got hurt. I mean, is the plan now to keep him outside, or is that the big secret for this week?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. A-Rob, the thing I'll say about him is, he got a battlefield promotion, and because he hadn't taken a lot of reps out there. Other than scout team reps, and he went out and he did a good job for us. And the thing you saw is his toughness, his physicalness. You saw him compete, and that's exactly what you expect from a young player. Like, we'll get you fixed on the other stuff, where to be and how to be there and what to see and where to look. The thing you hope that the young player brings is, hey, I'm going to play tough. I'm going to go compete my ass off. I'm going to go challenge. And that's what he showed last week, and that's what, we'll look to build on.
He seemed pretty sticky in coverage just when the ball was arriving. It's tough to then make the play. Is that just reps?
That's the next step, is now, there were a couple plays where I thought, like, you're in position to make it. Like, yeah, I know in college maybe you had that same coverage, they didn't throw the ball. Guess what? This league, they're throwing it, and especially when you consider who you're on the other side of. They're like, hey, we got a guy who was all pro last year, and we got this other guy over here. Let's try this other guy some. And I told him, like, I thought he was in good position a lot of the time. The next step for him is to not relax and to realize that at any moment that ball could be on me and I got to be ready to go make the play. And hopefully he does that, again, moving forward, whatever position he plays.
How much was your heart in your mouth on a couple of passes to?
Oh, the whole time. the whole time. That 2-minute drive, and you playing with guys who didn't get reps, playing the positions they were in, and you're just like, all right, let's go. But again, the thing you love about this group of guys is they play together, they play smart, they play hard, and they just compete and battle. So, I knew they would do that. But you.